Welcome everybody to the closing panel of Text by the Bay. Hope you enjoyed the last 2 days of the first ever Text by the Bay. Who wants to have another Text by the Bay next year? Awesome. So we hope you have fun. This is the first one, so there's a lot of interesting things happening. We figured out how this whole thing works with Galvanize. And I think next time we'll have an even bigger show for you with workshops, probably. One request was to have 2-3 hour tutorials for some of the talks, so folks can follow along and actually learn what is being presented hands-on, right? So this is certainly something we're going to add. We had 2 trainings this year. We're going to add probably more trainings. If you still want to learn NLP after all these days, we have a training with Gabor Meli tomorrow, which is Introduction to NLP for engineers who work in it but did not have formal training in computational linguistics. So if you're tasked to build another sentiment analysis engine for Lexalytics and you did not really take any courses in computational linguistics before, but you know how to write excellent code, then after tomorrow you could actually do that on Monday, right? So that's the purpose of tomorrow. So we have a panel entitled Business of Text, and yesterday we had a panel called the Science Panel. So there are 2, I think, pieces of this conference which were in evidence, I think, in almost every talk. On the one hand, we use highly involved technical systems which try to approximate human intelligence. On the other hand, we live in the real world, and these social technical systems, which are our companies, are operated by selling products to customers and having customers support us, and we figure out what is it they want to understand, and then we build it, right? So there is this interesting feedback by which this technology propagates throughout the world, and this is one of the most technical aspects, right? So we have NLP, people go to school to do a PhD in it, and we have many in the audience. The advantages or disadvantages of some of these technologies are hard to gauge even for the professionals, and if you compete in the market, if you propose better solution, it's pretty hard to explain it and show the value. So today we have the CEO panel. We have folks who either are currently CEOs of companies in the space or were CEOs of companies in the space, and they basically face these problems regularly. So I'll let these folks introduce themselves. Then we'll have a conversation among the panelists, and about halfway through the time we'll open it to the audience. And the way it's going to work, I'm going to place the mic in the holder here, and you can form a line on the left side. So you can basically form a line from this speaker, and then we'll just let folks ask questions in sequence, and you can address either individual panelists or the panel as a whole. Then you guys can jump at it, in some order. I think developer-first strategy is actually a very common strategy open source companies use, and a lot of companies built by technologists, for instance, Databricks, right? Spark finds gigantic enthusiasm among engineers. And then there is a bottom-up approach, and it did gather the momentum such that the enterprise now wants Spark, right? So, but it's very unusual in that in its case.
Yeah, the main difference is depends who you're selling to. If you're selling to brands or consumers, then underlying technology doesn't matter, and nobody needs to know about the code. If you're selling a solution to a business problem to someone who is not a technology company or is involved in different kind of technology, then yeah, you need a finished product, you need a solution to an existing problem. If you are selling a middleware technology that enables companies to build products, then you need to go to developers. We call that segment B2B2B, where we sell to businesses who sell to businesses.
Thanks. Then I'd like to kind of zoom a little bit in on this again, this paradox, right? So on the one hand, I know, Nikita, you're a developer yourself, right? And you enjoy writing code yourself, right? And that's what you would do daily, right? If you would create yourself an opportunity, and that's a lot of folks becoming CEOs, they're missing this, right? You have to sell the products, you have to watch the bottom line. And basically, so you have two constituencies. You need to inspire your developers. You need to be passionate about technology. On the other hand, you need to be dispassionate about the technology and think about the solution, right? If you frame it this way. So I mean, how do you avoid split personality? How do you do that if you're the technologist? That's a question for everybody.
All right. Well, that's a loaded question. So how do I peel it off? If you ask me from a kind of CEO standpoint, how do we as a group of executives, split our time and manage this? For me, developing sales and developing marketing, developing product is exactly the same. It's an engineering process. Yeah, developers write code, marketing people come up with campaigns and strategies, how to talk about a product, and salespeople come up with the same programs, how to sell it. So the difference is not that dramatic. You're definitely dealing with different types of people, and it's like herding the cats. That's typical what you do. So I don't really see it differently, as long as you seen it and you have certain maturity and understanding how business works. You just do it. But I think another aspect of your question was, I mean, if I'm a technical founder and CEO, how do I envision sales? I would hate to sell to myself. I don't buy anything as a developer. I use a lot of open source, and I can pinch every dollar. So that's why over the years I try to avoid situation where I have to sell to people like me, because if I'm a developer, I don't control a single dollar in my organization. And if you ask anybody in enterprise sale, practically all of us here in the panel, we will tell you that yes, we have to talk to developers, but then we have to navigate to somebody else within an organization to sell to somebody who has the budget. And it's kind of cool. There's a whole paradigm of kind of 50 miles radius in Silicon Valley. We have very specific, type of companies here in the Bay Area, which skews our perception dramatically. The rest of the world operates very differently. And it's kind of cool to sell, to a VC-funded company of 10 people, and you can bypass everything and sell to engineer. But then you quickly discover that your entire market is Silicon Valley. You move out, and you face the reality, where engineers don't buy anything. And as much as we believe that engineers are starting to have an effect, they don't. Most of the time, they do not have any effect on purchasing decisions. They may choose technology and when it comes to pure middleware, pure development tools, they may have certain way of saying. For any other tools that go upstack, they have very remote influence, if at all. And you have to engage them because they're good for marketing, for product marketing. They're pretty talkative and pretty nice focus group of constituency for you. But anybody in enterprise business, and that applies, by the way, to all local companies. Look at Cloudera, look at Hortonworks, look at DataStax from Spark. You think they're selling to developers? Absolutely not. They use developers to get to their accounts. But from a point of view of selling, somebody sending you a PO for your software, they're selling to very different folks in those organizations. And that's absolutely correct. Because again, we as developers, we don't really buy anything.
Well, I'll have to make a confession. I haven't written a line of code in my life. So I'm not a developer, and we moved to Silicon Valley from Boston and Montreal. So we kind of have the outside view to the market. Our trick is simple. Have the whole dev team route and say they want your software, and the VP will sign the PO. We do events, we make developers like how easy it is to integrate. We take them out. We literally go down to where they are, take them out, have our geeks talk to their geeks, and then we go talk to VPs, but VPs just don't have a second line in their choice. There's only one.
I've had an interesting journey as well. I'm a non-technical co-founder, but I have been teaching myself to code so I can better interface with my programmer. And I think that one of the big things that I've learned about my products and engaging customers in in any kind of venture, you have to be able to tell a story that relates to them, and you have to be able to engage them with exactly the kind of background and education and knowledge set that they have. And I think that what we're finding as we expand beyond Silicon Valley is that there is a great opportunity to be able to meet people at a variety of different levels of understanding, and being able to really get to the simplicity and to meet those needs of the customer, and also build trust, and kind of continuing to foster those relationships over a long term is something that I've also noticed as being useful.
Yeah, so the question about how technical founders can convince technical people to pay, I think that's kind of the umbrella question there. I think being one of them actually helps in spreading the message. I think, just Nikita said, engineers don't want to be sold to. But same with our customer segment is actually data scientists. Most NLP researchers, ML researchers, they're very hands-on. They actually don't like to be lied to, right? So truth in marketing comes out almost real. Being open and open source kind of really helps there. But we spend a lot of time with customers in meetups. It's off their hours. It's really non-salesy situation. It's pretty neutral. They came to the meetup on their own. So the last 2 years, we actually spent 2 nights every week, so roughly 150 meetups in the Bay Area, across the nation, and creating a movement in a community. Community is your brand. So customers are a subset of your community. So building a strong community is kind of your real vault or real moat, because anybody like Amazon can come along and say, we are now going to do machine learning, or some new company, bigger company would want to acquire you. And the moat you have to your business is customer support, customer success, but really the community and the belief of your community in you, the founder, that you're going to lead them for a long time, right? And listen to them for a long time. Younger companies listen much more effectively and act more effectively than bigger companies. That's our advantage. So that helps. We're more agile and come up with more immediate solutions to these problems that customers have, as opposed to let them wait for the next big rev in the product. So it's really product driven. And because of internet, because of Coursera, because of YouTube, people can learn about your technology or your competitor's technology just as rapidly as you could. And sometimes I challenge my team. I say in open source, the customers sometimes know more about my product than I do, or our companies do, because you've now suddenly 10,000 users banging it every day, as opposed to 100 QA or 10 QA or 5 QA people you can hire. So being absolutely passionate about your product is still the only mantra. Now, there is different ways to get the dollars from, right? So, and actually asking for, like I said, as I started, asking for cash is still important. You need to continue to ask the customer, hey, how do I sustain a business? And the interesting nuance is customers are spending money. Software companies never are software companies because of developers, but even corporate America has never had so much cash reserves as this time in the era, right? So in the overall scheme of things. So there is cash out there. It's outlaid for different businesses. So solving real business problems and aligning your data scientists to, most data scientists are part of a big business organization, but aligning yourself to big movements, like big data is a movement, and every company has a big data organization. And so your dollars could come from big data, your dollars could come from risk, your dollar can come from the CFO if you're fighting fraud, if your dollars, and especially in NLP, you see a lot of fraud. Your dollars can come from marketing organizations. CMOs are being completely quantified. So going into these higher level business functions and having a story that can resonate with those business functions, which says, you saved $5 million last year in predicting vehicle battery failure, so you need to pay me $50K. So kind of really making it a 10x or a 100x gain from what you have given them is always a way to get further. So being an engineer has not hurt this process. I think the process is about being honest, because if you're going through the customers demand excellence. And if the product's not good, they're not going to pay. And it's just like yourself. I mean, an outside Silicon Valley situation is also interesting because outside Silicon Valley, 100K, you can actually buy a home sometimes, right? So your software is as expensive as someone's home. So you really want to make sure it's as good as a home, right? So really want to give that sense of parity for some of these people. And developers are becoming more and more influential. There's definitely no second to that. I mean, all big phenomenons. Linux is a big story, right? It's a great story of open source, where developers have pushed large giants to their knees, like HP, Sun, all of these companies are no longer selling Unix. So really, developers have become really critical, but it's more than developers. It's the ecosystem of developers, data scientists, and DevOps, right, which is where Hadoop really sits, is in the DevOps situation. And Spark is in the developer space, and then now you're seeing a growing economy of machine learning and smarter application builders. And I think that will be a very fun to watch that revolution.
Thanks, Sri. So I think one important question where we see this interface of business technology is marketing, right? And we had Seth Redmore speak from Exalytics earlier. Is Seth around? So so then I'll tell a little story about Seth because he cannot, dispute it. So basically, we had an opening in the program at the last moment, and basically asked Exalytics to do a talk, and Seth was coming anyways, right? And he said, here are some interesting technical topics, and I knew already because I interacted with him as VP of marketing. So he sent some subjects, and I basically said, this is a great one. And I asked, who is presenting it? And he said, I'm presenting it, right? And I'm like, well, this is a developer conference, right? So we have engineers here, we have, NLP specialists. I sure, you can talk about it. And he said, well, I have 12 years of experience. I led the group developing. I'm in marketing now, but I fully understand this technology. I am a very good speaker, and I was like, okay, as long as you can impersonate an engineer, right? As long as you can answer questions without saying I'm just a marketing guy, right? I'll have to, defer to my developer. As long as you do not do that, you'll be fine. And so I went to his talk, and it was an excellent talk. He delivered on all points, right? Because this is a developer conference. I need to make sure that all the talks are on par. And it was really, really good talk. And so it struck me. It was clear that he interacted with customers many, many times. He digested piece of technology in very kind of beautifully done animations, which are not kind of the glamorous PowerPoints, but actually present the technical points clearly, right? And so this really struck me that this is the marketing guy any of the companies here could use. So I wonder, from your CEO perspective, how do you go about finding VP of marketing? How do you see marketing? How you direct it? How do you interact with it, giving you feedback? And we can go in order again.
It's a good question. In my experience, finding the good VP marketing was probably the #1 problem in any business, especially here in the Valley. Marketing is a key. What you learn, that's kind of interesting probably for the audience, is that the VP of marketing doesn't do anything. It's a management position. The VP of marketing manages other people. And to get that person is extremely important. What's also equally as important is to get the rest of the team properly. Because again, in today's marketing, which is extremely quantified, and there is dozens and dozens of programs you run continuously in the business, in campaigns and whatnot, one person never can do it. And therefore, you end up with having 2, 3, or 4 guys in the team very early on. And I would say, from my perspective, for the companies that I've run and I will start in the future potentially, the marketing is the probably #1 function in a company. Development is important, but I can give you examples for the next hour where products were shitty, but marketing was great, and the company was successful. And I can give you equal amount of examples where products were awesome, and marketing was bad, and the company shut down. So if I ever choose between great marketing and great development, I always pick marketing. But that obviously, don't get me wrong. The products are important too. Typically, for the company to be successful, truly successful, you have to have all three functions: the sales, marketing, and the product development to be in excellent shape. But for us, for technical founders, that sounds counterintuitive. We all tend to think that the better the product, the more successful the company. I got burned a couple of times because of that. And you tend to over-concentrate on the products. You tend to deconcentrate on sales and marketing, and that bites you in the ass very, very quickly. So I'm not saying we have to completely over-rotate and concentrate on marketing only, but especially in today's economy, especially if you're in the SaaS business, especially where things are quantifiable and there's plenty of metrics around you. Most of you probably heard that when you describe your architecture of a product, a lot of people ask, "What's your marketing stack? What's your marketing automation stack?" It was about 4 or 5 years ago, I first time heard that term. People already ask, "What's your stack for your software?" Like what you're using, like programming languages or libraries and app service and whatnot. People ask, "What's your marketing automation stack? How do you track every move, every action in the application? How do you move it back to the entire funnel of marketing from top to bottom? How it's all connected to Salesforce? How do you guys track the entire, life cycle of one click leading to opportunity, leading to a lead, leading to a closed sale?" So that's what's changed little in the last 5 to 10 years. I think it's a very healthy change that, for a lot of companies, and for me, for my companies as well, marketing automation, development, integration with Salesforce, and everything else, including the BI and reporting, is all product. There's no difference between coding something in Scala and making integration with, HubSpot or Marketo, or moving that in Salesforce. For me, that's the product. That's a one product. And multiple teams, interact with different facets of that.
Gotta just say, Nikita nailed it. We invested in our first marketing automation product, Oracle Eloqua. Back then it was just Eloqua, in 2008. And that was probably second biggest budget in the company after actually building the product, since we won a bunch of awards from Oracle and stuff like that. So kudos. I have a little trick though, how to hire the best VP marketing possible. Hire your own customer. Nobody understands customer problems and can articulate them better than your own customer. And I guess that's why Seth was good. He came from Cisco, which was a customer.
So one of the things, we're earlier along in our business than these other ones, but I think that there's been a common theme that we've found, and that's, why should I care? The customers really want to know, why should I care? And the attention span has decreased tenfold, and there are billions of apps out there, so we're inundated with all these different kinds of technology, and most of the time people just need to know what works for them right now in the simplest possible way. And so I think kind of a better product, a better technical product doesn't necessarily mean a better, higher customer engagement. And so that's something that we've learned, is how to just kind of offer various levels of simplicity for people. And my co-founder is the author of the SSL standard. So when he first kind of went out to secure that as his, as the ports that were going to be used out of beating out MasterCard and Visa, I think that the marketing around that was that it was clear that people needed to be able to have secure experiences online, and the experience of having those secure transactions go beyond just money was enough of a marketing experience to persuade the direction of that. And I think similarly, if you can do sales as an experience and really kind of meet people with what is relevant to them, then you would get them engaged in the product. And then if you can provide different tools, adaptive metrics that allow people to really feel like there's a customization that's involved, that's another, I think, way of continuously marketing. And then open source as well, being able to have that be built upon and remixed and iterated upon by other companies can be helpful in the marketing.
Excellent question. Something we're actually trying to solve the problem. So Nikita nailed it, as did Oleg. The key piece is community marketing is one part of it. So open source kind of really helps, where you can actually get a lot going. And in open source, you can track a lot. Most products these days have something like Segment.io or Google Analytics, so you can actually really track how the product's really growing. So that's one part of quantification. When we started our H2O world, we were looking for a lot of product use cases in product marketing and product techs. We just recruited 7 of our customers to go on stage and talk, and they basically created decks for us for the rest of the year. So customers, not just hiring from customers, but even asking customers to be on your conferences can create really good marketing material much more rapidly than classic training of the marketing team. But last time I found a good marketeer, I made him a co-founder, because getting good marketing is really hard. Marketing is kind of the soul of the company, and great marketing can make sales obsolete, right? So if you think about how the Apple products, people line up for it because really great marketing makes sales obsolete. And so truly good marketing is hard to get. It's actually the quantifiable side of it, the demand gen side, is actually well understood. Engineers quickly latch onto that. But the creative side of it is really hard to get. The connections, the social context of AR and PR and being connected with the entire, creating the story around your company and thought leadership in the space. All of that's really unique talent, and I think it's one of those most difficult hires in any startup, I would say. And we have probably, for example, a very good engineering machine that's delivering great product, great sales machine, and a phenomenal community marketing, but we still are in search of that great marketeer. So I will tell you the answer when I've solved that problem.
Excellent. So at this point, we'd like to take some questions from the audience if you guys have questions. If you have a question, please come here, and we'll go in sequence. While you're thinking whether you have a question, I'll ask another question then. So there are a couple startup-like companies here. So I think DataLingvo and H2 is further along, but it was very important for you guys to get or think about getting pilot customers, right? So I think a lot of startups here, the model is you have this great technology, right? You need some validation, and you go to VCs and say, I have this great idea. They say, well, do you have 100 customers? You have to have at least 10 customers, or just a single customer to prove us, first of all, you have a team which can do something, and secondly, this team is social enough to engage at least one customer, right? And so I think this is a classic story now that, the traction, that's why traction became such a word. So how do you go about getting pilot customers? I know, for instance, H2O got Netflix, which is a well-known company, right? And they use, I think, for attribution. So I think this is a great feat for any company to learn Netflix. So I wonder, how do you go about it, and what advice you can give to kind of young startups in search of the pilot customers?
So obviously, I want to hear what Nikita and Oleg have done as well. But the first customer, we actually had a customer in place or wanting to play with the product before we had investment. So that was the other way around. Sort of on the same days, we started playing with the customer's time. We started playing with our time first, and time is your enemy as a startup, right? So time is the only non-renewable resource, period, right? So you don't get it back no matter how much money someone will pay you. So pick things that you're passionate about regardless, right? So as we started trading it, we are our own first internal customers, because we actually like to use data and try to predict where to do the next meetup. But having a very big customer really tease the product out and beat it up to 15 pieces. We actually had GE, Nisakuna, also one of the earliest users of the product. We had Netflix and LinkedIn to a degree, PayPal, all these early customers really made the product great. And one led to the other, of course. The Net Promoter Score for some of the early adopters is not just the dollars in which they paid, it's how many customers they introduced you to. So that led to much more viral adoption. Trulia, we actually spent a lot of time at presenting, using their venue as our meetup venue, and that eventually the Trulia themselves got convinced that they could use our product. And so that was another approach. We would just look, as a startup, you're really the starving artist or starting entrepreneur trying to build really bridges between companies, between cultures, and you're also selling your culture to your customer, right? So they have to believe that you're going to be in it for a long time, investment or not, right? And that's actually what gets customers more excited. They really do have problem. Data scientists were suffering. They had 5 hours for every run for a random forest. We made that 5 seconds, and that was a real change in their lives. And so they would then find ways to tell their bosses to pay for the product so we can then go build a larger community. So I think it was really a matter of getting them engaged from a person-to-person basis, because it's a data scientist on the other side, and we are building a solution to solve the problem this side. NLP has the same problems. I mean, you're working with a customer, they're trying to do disambiguation, right? So you're trying to do whether PE is pulmonary embolism or pulmonary edema. It's a real problem for that medical business, and they are trying to make money out of that, right, obviously. And so it's a real problem, and you could try to build a morpheme that can actually kind of really build a morphological way of solving that problem using deep learning. Now, they've heard of deep learning, but they never could use it in practical ways. So what we've done from Tiano to us, the big difference is they could actually, without getting into too many instead of feature engineering, they could apply deep learning without having to tune deep learning to work for them. So I think that simplification, the gross simplification, which actually in the end saved time for the customer, that's what he was willing to really spread the word on. So I think the crux of it is it's still a solution. There's a pain. It's easier to sell painkillers than vitamins. And I think that's kind of the crux of how we made sure obviously many of these product items would fail, right? And all those failures taught us to build the product, made the product better, taught us not to pick up things we can't solve, pick up things we can solve, and which are actually useful for the customer. So I think overall it was a very good customer, and because of the open source nature, there were a lot of Jiras. People could go online and give us a lot of feedback on what to fix that would save them more time. And in the end, we built a product that had a good market fit, because the market defined the product for a long time. So.
Really like what you said about the analogy of it's easier to sell painkillers than it is to sell vitamins. And I think that in my startup journey, we are actually in the middle of another kind of marketing push for our newest applications. And the first round of customer feedback was, or the process that we went through was initially that we needed the tool ourselves. And there was a strong desire between me and my co-founders to build this tool because it was something that we would be able to use. My co-founder is a teacher, and he does online courses. I've had a background in nonprofits and storytelling, so really in education. And so figuring out where that intersection was, and then also finding out what the pain problem for the markets that we were going for, and really listening to what they had to say. And that therefore drove different iterations of the product. And then being able to essentially have evangelists, people that are really excited about what you're working on and really excited about the potential and the directions that they're moving in. I think that that's something that is useful for any kind of product or company, being able to have people that are on board with your story. And we have people all over the world that are kind of using the product. And I think, again, being able to do something where there's some sort of experience, where people are seeing something firsthand rather than having to listen to or read a bunch of text. And so I think that the journey for any kind of startup that wants to gain a lot of customers before they go to raise funding or to do anything else is really to feel like they've truly understood the space in which they're working in, the audiences that they're working in, and the different pain points, and then also being able to essentially forecast for what the different problems down the road or the different features down the road that these new audiences and communities will be really interested in. I think that's kind of both pre and future planning for how you can gain more customers.
I still remember the day when our first customer actually signed that paper. Holy bananas. That was quite something. So what do you do when you don't have a product? Which is where most of people are when they're just starting out and they're asking VCs for money. You need another 8 months of development to have something working. Right now you kind of have a prototype, maybe an algorithm, an idea, and very excited eyes. How do you sell that? How do you sell that to customers? Well, I kind of found a way, I guess. You sell a story and you sell a relationship. You have to tell them, hey guys, this is how it's gonna look once you help me succeed at building it. And trust me, since you're the first ones, I will be there for you, and things won't go down at 4 a.m. in the morning. But if they do, I'll wake up. So that's kind of how we got our first 10, 15 customers. They were true believers. And the first one ever, we have a nickname for him. He is our serial buyer. He bought us 4 times. So he sold his first startup, started another one, bought us again, sold it to a huge company, stayed at a huge company until they bought us, left that company, and then bought us at his 3rd startup. So that's a relationship.
Yeah, again, that's a, in my opinion, pretty loaded question. And how do you get the customers, right? What else do we care in our startups? I'm going to answer very quickly. The best way to learn that is to follow folks like Steve Blank and Mike Schuster from Upfront Ventures on Twitter and read everything those guys write. Read about lean startup and lean analytics. Just Google this if you haven't heard about it. If you read those couple of books, you'll know pretty much what everybody else today in the Valley is doing. Look at growth hacking when you're interested in marketing. It's another term that's pretty popular right now. So I guess, yeah, we can spend the whole conference on ways how to acquire customers when you don't have ones, or what you do when you have just an idea. So I guess it's just a couple of pointers for all of you guys. That's how I learned it many years ago. So kind of works.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Excellent.
Thank you. I actually have a follow-up question to this, and I've always wanted to ask it to at least one CEO of a company, and now there's 4 of you, and that's awesome. So the question is this. When you have a product or an idea, let's just say an idea, that you think is awesome, otherwise you wouldn't be trying to sell it, usually it goes something like this. It's either completely new and no one else is doing it, or it's somehow different than someone else in some important way. And so my question is, and you partly answered it, but not entirely, is why? If someone says, well, you do this, and if this is new and it's important, why is anyone else already doing it, if this is so important? And if it's so different, again, like, how is it so different? Why should I do it? And how do you face this? How do you tell that story convincingly, usually to more than one person? Yeah, I will leave it there.
Who wants to answer?
Well, typically, most of the startup stories are completely unconvincing. They typically look like rubbish, and most people don't believe. I mean, there's a famous story when Google guys were raising money. 70% people said, "You guys crazy. Idea is stupid, and no, we're not going to do it." And they raised some money initially, and idea was not that bad. But it's the same story. I mean, you guys have to understand this. When we hear all this, glamorous stories about, the latest great company and the unicorns, they all started with, barely making it, barely finding some money, making, or 20 pivots internally before one gets public, and most of the companies never survive. So don't think that you have to have any kind of dramatic story or dramatic development. Sometimes it happens, but very rarely, believe me. Look at any company, look at whatever, look at, Twitter, look at Uber, whatever else is hot right now. Most of them started, Twitter was a completely different idea in the beginning. The whole idea of pivots, actually, the terminology for this change in direction came from this, because almost every goddamn company starts with some idea and literally says, "Oh, no, this is a piece of shit. We're not going to have to move something else. Otherwise, we're not going to survive." So now we have a term for this. It's called pivot. So again, it's a longer topic again. I would say caution yourself on an expectation to have something great. Typically, ideas are very, I wouldn't say boring, but good ideas. And I had plenty of interaction with venture community, and typically best ideas are fairly boring in what they do. Not really, no. Look, I mean, there's a great difference, and that's a funny thing when you talk to VCs. Both sides of the table are lying. We're lying about what we see. They're lying back to you as far as that's how great the idea is and whatnot. So you ask any venture capitalist, they'll tell the same story. I haven't heard the pitch for Uber, for example, but I guarantee you it was pretty audacious and in the same time kind of are you guys crazy to take on the taxi industry? Yeah, good luck. Go talk to somebody next. But eventually somebody liked the idea and say, you know what, let's risk. By the way, keep in mind that most of the early stage investment, it's a massive risk. People, if you get funded, it's not that somebody believed in you so much. It's just basically the risk calculation came somewhat more positive for you than for somebody else. As obviously most investors will lose most of the bets early on, and that's okay because some of them, like those companies we all know, will go up pretty big. So it's not that you have some wonderful story to tell. A lot of the we now digress into the investment story side, but I want to keep it more of an idea. So again, back to my original thesis is that I'm a strong believer that ideas should be fresh enough, boring enough, and executable, rather than the flamboyant and everything else.
I actually have a quick pointer that served me really well for the past several years. I had a lunch with Tom Chi. He's the founder of Google X, the guy who was on the product team for self-driving car, for Glass, for Project Loon, etc. And he told me about his rule of thumb. In any idea, he's looking for magic moments. An idea that's going to work needs to have at least one magic moment. Ideas that go to billions have 2 or 3 magic moments in customer experience. Remember the first time you called Uber? And you just tapped on your phone screen, there is a car, it just shows up. To a person who is not technical, that's magic. That's a magic moment. But then you took a ride and you arrived to a destination and you start pulling out your wallet. And the driver's like, no, it's all taken care of, it's Uber. And you're like, holy, that's another magic moment right there. So if you point these magic moments out in your idea to investors, they'll bite it. That's kind of what has guided me through.
I can almost guarantee you that the original pitch from Uber never had any of those points.
That's true.
Just to be clear, I mean, I would love to see the pitch. I guarantee this will be absolutely different story. I mean, it's something to do with the cars, but none of that was there. It comes with execution. It comes with a lot of customer discovery. It's the process to get those things done, not originally.
Yeah, I think, Nikita, you touched on some really key points that are important when you are facing the why. Why does it matter? And why are you different from the 10 other people that I saw with that same idea earlier today? I think that it comes down to a real understanding of the problem and some real clear ability to understand what the best approach is. Obviously, there's a lot of merit that people have found in simplifying their approach and being able to offer kind of the minimal viable product. And I think that the iterations that happen with those meetings and with the kind of development of the product are key in how you continue to move forward. And I think that something that's stuck with me in my personal journey with being told no, or this is interesting, but is it valuable? I think that there's a lot that has to say for passion. And if I am also suffering the same problem, then I know that my customers will agree with this. If my co-founder and the community members that we've already reached have experienced a satisfactory feeling or a feeling of success in a short amount of time, then that's a little win. That's a magic moment on a small scale. And I think that as you continue to gain more of momentum of meaningful experiences and also being able to show bottom line execution, how do you just meet stakeholders' needs for return? That's also something that's key to be able to show. So I think it's navigating that balance, being able to show enough of a there, and it really depends on the team too. It depends on the people that are running it, the people that are behind it. There are a lot of products out there, and there are a lot of products that aren't great. And so being able to have continuous iteration, feedback from UI, feedback from developers, other people that are engaging with the product, it's a really holistic approach.
It's funny. great panel here and great question. I think my tweet this morning was it all unicorns have magic, but for the rest of us, execution is still not cheap, right? So, I mean, execution. I mean, that was literally the tweet this morning. So, like, I think the magic part is apart. I think the talk is cheap. I mean, there's a lot of products out there, a lot of noise out there. Because I mean, earlier question about how do customers confuse your product because of the noise, because everybody says they do everything that the customer wants to hear. So I think, and same with the investors, obviously they know that people will say what they want to hear. I mean, you can figure out by, think of the typical entrepreneur they meet as straight A's from all the Ivy Leagues. So they know what the questions will be, right, sort of in sense of it. So to that degree, I think they really know that talk is cheap. So you can persevere and your actions will speak loudly over time. That will resonate with the why. Why are you doing this? Is going to be a question that resonates every day while you're living that startup. It's not just for the VCs. It's not just for the customers. It's not just for your own people, your own families. Startups are journeys, and you need to be constantly self-learning, obviously, and you're learning by making mistakes, obviously, and hopefully you're making new mistakes, and all of that's painful. And so you need to know why you're doing this all the time, and you'll be aware of that by virtue of all the things you face anyway. So the why of it, the bigger movement of why should I spend 10 years or 7 years or 5 years through this journey will be very evident through each moment you live in it, especially if you're aware of it. And if that's going to lead to bigger change, because the change you want to see in the planet is probably why you're doing this. And that's the only reason you should be doing this. It doesn't matter. Most great ideas, as Nikita put, are considered dull ideas. Like machine learning was a very dull idea 4 years ago. And nobody wanted to fund the Valley never even still hesitates to fund math as a startup. And so you will find that people will eventually believe in what you want to believe if you can make that happen. It's almost a matrix. So you are the one. If you're the founder and you're pulling it through, you are the one. You make the reality happen around yourself. In many ways, yourself grows as you build the company, and the movement emerges from your company and from your vision. And that movement is what people are chasing. And if that movement touches 1 billion people, it's a unicorn. If that touches 1 million people in an enterprise, it's again a big company. If it touches 100,000 people, it's a company still. You've changed the people around you. And that's why either you build companies or you join, because you're a revolutionary, you're starting a revolution, you're building that company, or you join a revolution and make that revolution go further. So it's kind of really a continuous process. And if you fail, you're going to pick up someone else's journey and continue to take it to finish. So there is no failure, and failures teach really, are really the successes, because you learn from them more than the successes themselves. So to that degree, it's a continuous process. In Silicon Valley, you'll see that startups don't die because the same people come together and start the next big thing. So it's a continuous process. In that sense of it, it's not a zero-sum game. People are you are watching yourself grow, and that's what leads to better ideas. Your ability to throw away bad ideas gets better over time. So.
Thank you, Sri, for this wonderful answer. I think it reminded all of us why we're doing this. So really appreciate it.
So there's this notion that technology risk varies inversely with market risk. Is that something that any of you have, I guess, considered, or has that kind of implicitly entered into your decision to go into a particular kind of business?
No. That's my answer.
Well, I was entrant number 8 or 9 into the market, and my decision was based on how can everybody screw it up like that? So, yeah.
I think that I've seen some correlation, though very little, in how our technical wiring is in place and how it drives our ability to find customers. I think that we've started to, on the side, explore different territories and frontiers with PDFs in particular, but just in building libraries and kind of going down that road of technical development, but that not necessarily having a direct correlation with the markets that we're trying to reach, unless we look at the markets that we're specifically targeting that use a lot of PDFs. And so I've seen small correlation.
I think, I mean, for technology, I mean, really the people you pick, the physics of software is physics of the team you have. The physics of markets you can create are also related to kind of people you can attempt to accrue over the course of your immediate time. And a lot of things happening around you, obviously, and like kind of like bigger movements, such as in memory, has become a huge movement. So you want to align on those, some of those. But I mean, to some degree, open source, in memory, Hadoop, or big data, and being in that, trying to get machine learning to be rebirthed in the context of big data, that was something that I had to make happen, because over the last 10, 15 years, machine learning was completely unfundable. I mean, even it still is. I mean, Google search as an application is very, very fundable. But machine learning, if they sold PageRank, I'm pretty sure no one will fund them, right? So to some degree, what we are doing is actually build algorithms in a generic fashion. I had to tie that to a bigger wagon that's changing the business, which is big data. So I think trying to it gives you context, but you still do what you really want to do, and that's kind of the crux of it. I would have done this part of this as an innovation, whether it was fundable or not, right? So that was kind of when it gets funded, really. So.
Thank you. So I think we are a little bit past our allotted time. So I think. Oh, okay.
How many of you are? How many CEOs in the audience? Obviously, how many entrepreneurs and people are beginning to build? How many natural language processing, NLP people, text people? Awesome. And how many of you are from the area? How many of you flew away from other parts of the world and got here? Where from? Montreal. Oh, Montreal. And? Indiana, Bloomington. Yeah, so I mean, thank you for listening to us, and obviously it's all a journey, as some of you have realized, and we'll probably have more to learn from the audience than from us to you, but it's our shared experiences. As you can see, there's so much commonality in the thinking. You usually assume as founder that's a lonely journey, but there's a lot of shared experiences. So definitely send an email or connect with us if we can inspire you to do bigger things than what we are doing. That's also part of the same ethos. So thanks for putting this together, Alexy.
Thank you, Sri. Thank you, Nikita, Oleg, and Katelyn. That was a really great panel. It's a great way to finish our conference. We have a happy hour upstairs. We have drinks, and so we can continue this conversation upstairs. Thanks, guys.